Let me go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. We're making two workflows today, and the first thing I wanted to show is how to create a workflow that gets triggered by a scheduled recurring list. And in this example, we'll want to start a workflow every day for everyone who has met certain criteria within the last day, within the last 24 hours. So in this case, I made this dynamic list, and we're looking for a custom event. We're going to call it profile complete. That would symbolize when a user, when a customer has finished updating their profile on your site, on your app, and you have sufficient enough information to send them a variety of different messages, whether it's through email or SMS or push. The profile is complete, so this would assume you have information about their first name, last name, etc. So in this case, we're looking for everyone who has completed their profile in the last 24 hours. This is a relative date, so we're going to be looking at everything from 24 hours ago until right now. Looks like there's just one user, which is me. It's a test user. So with this list, we can go ahead and make a workflow. So I'm going to jump directly to that, create a new workflow. And we're going to choose a different trigger. We're going to trigger by a scheduled recurring list. This allows me to use the dynamic list that I just created and decide when it gets run. So I can even run this during the call today if we want. Do that right now. And if you select an end date, it'll only run once. We can select days we don't want it to run, on weekends, for example. But for now, we're just going to keep it simple. Save. All right. From here, let's send our users a message. Send email that welcomes them to Iterable and ask them a question. I'm going to save this so it creates a new campaign. You can refresh the page. And we'll see that this message is ready to be sent. You can jump in to see what it looks like. And for this office hours, for this example, we use the drag and drop editor just to make some quick, simple edits. We're welcoming people to Iterable, but we also want to know what their preference is. Do they prefer getting SMS or emails? And what we did here is send them to any website, in this case, Iterable, but we added in an extra parameter that indicates whether someone prefers being contacted via email or via SMS. So it's as simple as that, just marking this. And this will be used in the second workflow to identify which URL, which button was clicked on. This is really nice because anyone can set this up without even needing special analytic tools on the website that you're linking to. All you need to know is what link you put in the original message, this message here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. It's all set to be sent. All right. I'm going to keep this open so we can come back and reference it once we build our second workflow. But this workflow will begin in just a few minutes, and I will be sent through it. In the meantime, I want to jump to our second workflow. Now, real quick, almost forgot to enable this. Perfect. If I jump over here, okay, let me refresh this. All right, so the workflow I just made looks great. It's going to be scheduled. Let's jump into this other workflow. This one will be the one that responds appropriately. So this is pre-built, but the trigger is whenever a person clicks on an email. So all we did is choose a message that was created. And in this case, we're going to want to choose the one that was in the workflow we just made. So here's the welcome email. This is one from the workflow we just made. So whenever someone clicks on any link in that campaign, they will automatically be entered into this workflow, assuming it's on. From there, we were interested in knowing what they chose for their preference. So again, like I said, from the campaign, if they clicked on the SMS, they're going to have this medium preference equals SMS for the link. That's the URL that they clicked on. So when we come back here, if we're looking for users who selected SMS, we want to look for anyone who clicked on an email and the URL contained medium preference equals SMS. So we can include the entire link if we know exactly what it is. We can also do contains. I just look for SMS or medium equals SMS, something like that. As long as this is unique and isn't found in both URLs, that'll work as well. I like being really specific with my work, so I'm going to keep it with equals and then the entire URL. You can optionally include extra criteria for when it was clicked. We can check to make sure that the click happened in the last day if we'd like. That way, if a person comes back to this message next week and clicks on a link, they won't receive another follow-up message. So that's optional. And then it looks like someone rearranged this. So I'm going to redo this, switch them around. Okay. So if someone prefers getting message via SMS, I'm going to want to send them a confirmation via SMS that says, thanks. So as long as your project is set up to send SMS messages, you can quickly make an action node that sends a message. You can reference their first name, say, you've chosen SMS as your primary method of contact or any other message. Click save. If anyone has any questions about SMS or setting up SMS, please reach out to us or your customer success manager. We'll be happy to give you more info about pricing, setting that up, what your options are. It gives you a lot of flexibility to send messages to anyone, regardless of whether or not they have a smartphone. Hit save. So this one looks good to go. Assuming a person did not prefer SMS and clicked on the email instead, we can look for that specifically. Now, in my very simple message, there were only 2 options to click on here. So logically, if a person didn't click on the SMS, but they did click on something in the campaign, then they probably clicked on the email link. But just to be safe, we also want to double check to make sure that they did click on the email preference button. And same thing, we can add optional criteria for creation date within the last 24 hours. And as a reminder, whenever you're choosing creation date, it always refers to the category chosen above. So in this case, it's looking for when the click happened, the creation date of that click event. But of course, if you were looking for a different category, like an open or a custom event, the creation date would refer to that category. I'm going to update my node. Send this. Perfect. So it looks like we're doing great on time. In about a minute, I should receive a message to my inbox. And that will allow me to choose one of these options here. And just to make it more visible, I'm going to add an action node and make it a delay node, just to make it more visible that when I click on a message in my inbox, that it will get triggered appropriately. It looks a little messy. I'm going to rearrange a couple things here. Perfect. Much better. Sounds good. All right, looks like I just got that message in my inbox. see if I can bring that up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click the SMS option here. All right, so I click the message, and in just a moment, when I refresh, I should show up in this workflow. All right, there I am. To double check that's actually me, I'm going to open this up. Whenever you have a delay node or a node that currently contains a lot of users, you can click this little option right here, and I would for opening it up in a new tab. And it'll show you up to 2,000 users who are currently at that node. It tells you when they entered the workflow, when they entered the action node, the delay node, and when they're expected to exit the delay. So it gives you all the information right here. And yeah, if multiple people were clicking my campaign, they would each show up here in the delay node. So let me close this out. Yeah, it looks like we're good to go. So assuming everything works correctly, in the next couple minutes, I'll get passed through the filter node. And if I go down the yes pathway, which I should because I clicked on the SMS option, I'll also get a follow-up response right to my phone. Perfect. So while we're waiting for this, does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any comments about setting up workflows or using SMS in workflows or anything else? If there's anything on your mind, feel free to type it out into the chat box in this webinar, and I'll be able to see it. All right. Cool. I see question. Let's see now, where are we? Perfect. So we've got a question. The question is, can you go over the setup for the query in filter again? Yeah, definitely. So within this workflow, we want to see what URL was clicked on. So this whole workflow is triggered whenever a person clicks on an email. So we know that it was one of those URLs. From there, we want to choose the category email click. So we can just type in click here, email click, and then any options that show up here. See if I can move this. Any options here will be in reference to the email click category. So I'd be interested in the URL, but there's a lot of other fields here, whether it's someone's ID, IP address, message ID, but URL is the most important for this category. From there, I want to do equals, and I can actually go back to this campaign that I'm referencing and copy this entire URL here. If you're using the WYSIWYG editor, you can also go into the source code and copy that link and paste it in here. So one thing to note is that if you have a brand new project or no links have been clicked on yet, this URL field won't show up yet. Once you send a campaign and it's been clicked on a few times, this field will show up and be an option to choose from here in this category. So because this training platform has had campaigns sent out and something was clicked on, the URL field shows up as an option. From there, you can choose it. I pasted mine in. If that specific link has been clicked on in the past, it'll show up here. All right, chat. Is there a way to suppress people as a safety net? For example, yes. Yeah, definitely. Great question. So in this case, we want to, we're just looking for people who have clicked the link, but we can add a criteria group. Let's see now. Okay. So let's say we want to exclude people who have a certain email address. So in this case, no, we're choosing contact property because this is a user property. And we can say, does their email address contain iterable.com or something? So in this case, we want people who have clicked on the SMS link, but if their email address contains Iterable, then they won't be included. So we're looking for people. Let's make this simple. Right here, select an SMS, and email is from Iterable. So now we're going to do all, because we're looking for people who did click on the SMS link and their email is from Iterable. Email contains Iterable. Looks good. That's good. So if they clicked on it and they're from Iterable, they'll get sent a follow-up SMS. And otherwise, they'll get sent down to this second filter through the no pathway. Similarly, instead of checking for email, we could also see if they're on a certain list. So maybe people who clicked on the link, but we only want people who are on my happy customers list. So it depends what your criteria is and what you're looking for, but you can definitely add extra criteria here or exclude people. And that just depends whether you want them to go down the yes pathway or the no pathway. Great questions. All right. Okay. And while we've been talking, I'm going to refresh this so that all the numbers update on this page. Cool. Looks like I've exited the delay. And that means that I should show up in the campaign. All right. I see another question. It says, what's the setup look like for the trigger for the second workflow? It's a great question. Let me come back to that in just 1 minute. All right, here we go. So looks like an SMS was sent. That's perfect. We can export this data if we want to confirm that it was to me or other data. But I received this to my phone, so we know everything is working as expected. As for the trigger to the workflow, let me jump back. This is the second workflow, so one that checks to see what message was clicked on. So we chose clicked an email. There's a bunch of different trigger options. We can just go right to click an email. And then we're choosing the campaign that was created in the previous workflow. So let me jump back to our previous workflow. So the entire campaign name, again, is welcome email 2016, campaign from workflow 9177. So that's useful to know what workflow we're referring to. But of course, if we click through this, or if we look at the bottom left of the screen right now, you'll see the campaign ID showing up there. That's also visible if we go to the workflow directly. So it'll show up here. It'll also show up here. That's a campaign ID. So if we want to be specific, we can actually just paste in that ID, and it'll take us directly to, so you know exactly which campaign you're referring to. Every campaign has a unique campaign ID, so you can paste that in and quickly sort through all of your campaigns, all of your messages, so you know which one you're referring to. So whenever a link gets clicked in that campaign, that'll trigger this second workflow here. Great questions. So that's the basics for the setup of two workflows that work hand in hand. This first one just gets run once a day, every day, for everyone who has that profile complete event on the profile. In this case, we're assuming that profile complete gives you enough information so that you already know what someone's phone number is and you set up that profile correctly. But from there, you can mark their preference. After you send the confirmation message, maybe you'll update their user profile maybe you'll add them to a list that says SMS preference only. From there, your options are totally up to you. All right, I see a question. Question is, we know that someone clicked, but not that necessarily completed the action on the landing page, right? Have to feed that data back into Iterable. It's a great question. In this case, we assumed that the only information we needed to know was just that the person clicked on anything. And we wanted to know which button they clicked on. If you also wanted them to input extra information on your site and fill out their profile more, then that's correct. You'd have to send that data back probably in a custom event or update the user profile directly once you have that information. It depends what type of information you're dealing with. In this case, we kept it simpler. We just want to know that they clicked on, button A or button B, but that's correct. Great questions. Again, thank you all for your time, and I'll be here for a few more minutes if anyone else has any questions. I'm happy to help, provide more information. Again, this is more of a high-level example, and if you have questions that are specific to your brand or your users or your Iterable environment, definitely feel free to reach out to us on live chat or your customer success manager. We'll be happy to jump in and give you more specifics that relate directly to your custom environment. Yeah, if there are any other questions, now would be a great time. And for those of you who have joined, we'll also be sending out a quick follow-up survey. It'll be extremely short, and we'd be really happy if you could take that just to help give us some feedback of what went well, what didn't go well, and to give us some ideas of things we can focus on in the future for future office hours. All right, again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it a lot. I'll be closing down the webinar, but this office hours has been recorded. So if you'd like to see that, we'll be posting that in the future, either to share with your teammates or to just reference later again if you have any questions. Thanks so much for your time, and hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.